Hey everyone, welcome to another Worth a Second Chance community check-in. I am joined by Ron Zarth today, who is an individual support worker at Jesuit Social Services. Ron, thank you so much for joining me.
That's fine, Jess.
Thank you. Appreciate you spending your time with us. Would you be able to give us a little overview of what it is you do in your role kind of day to day?
Yeah, so I'm an individual support worker, so basically work with a lot of young people that are either exiting care or exiting prisons or exiting youth justice centres, and specifically, well, there's a whole range of things to actually provide, whether it's stuff around housing, legal, linking young people into education and employment. So it can be a whole range of things that you're actually doing within the role.
A lot of kids who are involved in the justice system are also involved in child protection, often having a hard time at home and usually disengaging from school, breaking ties with school. How can these, or how do these issues compound and lead to involvement in the justice system?
Well, I think if a kid's actually disengaged from school, it's probably more around trying to get a good understanding of actually what's going on at home, because I think that would relate to actually why the kids actually disengage from school. So it's really important to get a good sense of actually what's happening in a young person's life, but more importantly, what's happening at home, because I think that actually links in with why a young person may have disengaged from education and so forth.
Absolutely. I think if you don't have that stable base and supportive home life, things like school can feel like the last of your
Yeah,
worries probably.
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And so we know that there's a strong correlation between out-of-home residential care and involvement in the justice system. How do you think we could work towards changing that?
In my personal opinion, actually, in working in that particular sector, which I don't anymore, but I worked in that sector for about 4 years, I felt in some ways that it was mostly reactive in regard to how you're actually managing, trying to deal with young people that are actually in that environment. And I feel personally that if you put four highly traumatised children actually in together, and it's really a recipe for disaster, because kids that usually come into care, they're coming into care for a reason, and it's usually around trauma and abuse. And linking kids in with other kids that obviously have the same issues, I really feel, it's really like a recipe for disaster, where kids actually come into care and they learn behaviours and are open to new experiences they've never experienced before. And a lot of that is around drugs and offending and so forth. Um, my personal opinion is the residential system, you need to probably look at things where having less numbers in those residential units. I feel that four is actually too many, and that they should be looking at maybe around two young people, and looking at the matching too. That's just so important that, is a kid actually suitable to go into that residential placement? What are the risks that are actually involved in placing that child with other children actually
Mm.
there? Yeah, so in my experience, I feel that actually what it actually does is it sets kids up to fail. And one of the things that actually should be happening is, I think the staff that are actually doing that particular work, they're trying to do the best that they actually can. There should be therapeutic clinicians working in each of those residential units, so they can actually get a good sense, or the staff can get a good sense of how best to work with a child from a trauma-informed practice. Because I think if you actually get a good understanding of a young person's trauma, then they can actually assist you in how to work with that child. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I guess it's something that we hear as well in actually in detention, that there's a lot of kids with a lot of trauma and a lot of experiences together, and it's not necessarily conducive to healing and positive role modeling and extending that community. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ron, you have your own lived experience with the justice system. Can you recall an adult or positive role model in your life that supported you during this period?
Well, personally, I'd probably say no. I mean, I think things have actually changed quite a bit, compared to my days. I'm going back into the 70s and 80s, and back then there wasn't a great deal of support. I think things have changed a lot more, where there is a lot more support. but no, I can't really say that there was actually any one person that really sort of helped me
Mm,
through my journey in regard to going into care and going into youth justice, and then I went into the prison system
yeah.
as a young man.
I imagine that the role you're doing now is kind of the exact person that you needed at that time when you were a young man.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess the role that I actually play with a lot, I mostly work with a lot of young men, and I think it's more of a mentoring role, but
Mm,
just trying to be a really good, positive male role model, because I find that actually, usually with a lot of the young blokes that I actually work with, dads are usually long time gone, mums are usually still on the scene, but they've had very few positive male role models in their life in teaching young men, how to be good young men, you know.
mm,
So I think, yeah, that's probably more so the role that I actually play. I place a high value on the relationships that I actually build with young people, because I feel that that's pivotal to the sport, not only the sport I provide, but in regard to guiding a young person. So yeah, there's a big emphasis in the work that I actually do. I come from a real relationship based approach in trying to build that with young people.
absolutely. And those relationships will follow them throughout their whole lives, even if you're not around anymore and able to be that mentor, like your voice or your guidance, or just even knowing that, someone believed in them and all that kind of stuff, I think can carry young people in incredibly good stead. And just know relationships are so powerful. So thank you for the awesome
Yeah,
review.
yeah, they are.
Um, yeah. So, what do you think young people, this is a broad question, so I don't feel you need to cover everything, but what do you think the young people in contact with the justice system are in need of?
Well, personally, I'd like to see sort a lot more vocational stuff. Links into employment or links into education. Because I really don't believe that locking kids up is the answer. You need to really get to the root of the cause as to why they're offending or why they're disengaged from education, or whatever it actually may be. I think that's really critical in trying to actually work that out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like in this world and the way it operates is you do need a job and employment to just I don't know to survive. Like you need education and housing would be the other thing, but those are kind of those two pillars that without we can't work with much, can we? Like without those sort of things holding up young people. So that's a really good point. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, you've supported a
Well,
lot of.
even
Sorry, yeah, continue.
I was going to say, even if you look at the housing sector, and how difficult it is to get housing. I mean, this issue's been going on for years, and it's a real struggle. I mean, you can actually look at young people that you're actually trying to support, and um, they don't have any permanent accommodation, so they're moving around from here, there, and everywhere. They might be trying to get employment, or improve their education, or linking back in, with their children, or whatever it may be. But if you're worried about, where you're going to be living from one day to the next, or next week to the next, and trying to do all those other things, it can be extremely difficult.
Mm,
One of the things I actually find with the young blokes that I actually work with, when they get to the age of say 21 to 25, it can be near on impossible to actually get accommodation. So this particular target group, I feel there's such a high recidivism rate for these young men that actually return to prison, and usually a lot of these young blokes can get quite entrenched in the system. So I really feel that one of the main issues around supporting young people is actually having good, safe, affordable accommodation. And it's
mm.
just so difficult to actually make anything work, or a young person to work towards their goals, if they don't have safe, affordable housing. You
Absolutely.
know,
It's just bare essential. Like that is just
oh,
something shouldn't, it's not a negotiable. We all need a roof over our head and a home to just get anything done. We need to feel safe, somewhere we can rest our head. And you're right, that's such an issue for, I guess, all of like all in Australia, just people fleeing
yeah,
family violence, refugees, all these kind of people that just need a home. Housing is what we
yeah.
need. Yeah, absolutely. My last question for you, Ron, is you've supported a lot of young people in your career. Is there any one person that you've come across that has really influenced you the most?
In regard to young people,
It doesn't
or
necessarily have to be a young person, but maybe if you have a young person and an older person that might have influenced you, or yeah.
I think probably for me it'd be Father Brosnan, who was he was the Pentridge priest at in Coburg there for about 25 years, and once I moved from youth justice, which was juvenile justice back then, and went into the prison system at 17. I met Father Brosnan, but I only met him for about 10 minutes. But what Father Brosnan would actually do is any young males that used to come into the prison, he would make a beeline for them and just see that they're okay and whether they needed anything. And I only met him for about 10 minutes. And I remember, all the guys in the yard, and I was one of the youngest, so I think I was the youngest actually there. And back then you couldn't really, show any vulnerability. So I sort of, in some ways, I don't think I was actually disrespectful. I sort of fobbed Father Brosnan off, but I never actually got a chance to actually see him again. It was only for 10 minutes, but it had such a profound effect, I feel, on my life. And actually, quite ironically, the only place that really gave me a go was Jesuit Social Service, who Father Brosnan was part of. So, I hold him in such high esteem, and in some ways I feel like I'm trying to keep his legacy alive and flying the flag for him, because I've got the utmost respect for him. But one of the things I would have wished that I had a chance to actually just to thank him. But when I started with Jesuits back in 2004, Father Brosnan had died the year before, so I never really got a chance to sort of thank him. So, which is a bit of a shame, but in some ways I sort of feel like I'm still trying to fly the flag for him and helping out young blokes and stuff like that. So yeah.
That's incredible. I'd never met him either before working at Jesuit Social Services, but I have no doubt he'd be incredibly proud of you, and just in awe of where you've come and what you've been able to achieve. But I just think what's so remarkable about that story, Rod, is that he met you for 10 minutes, and the power of genuine engagement and empathy and kindness that can have on a person, particularly a young person, should never be underestimated. So that's really a really beautiful way to end. Thank you for sharing that story with us.
That's okay, just.
Yeah, and just thanks for your time and your insights, and just for the work that you keep doing and the young men that you keep supporting. I have no doubt you've changed their lives in the same way that Father Bronson was able to change yours. So yeah, it's a lovely full circle. All right, thanks,
Thank you,
Ron. All right, bye.